A lot of people talk about fame and success like it just falls out of the sky and lands in somebody's lap. Like one day you wake up and the whole world is screaming your name. But that is not how this story goes. Not even close. The story of Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, the man the world knows as Bad Bunny, is the kind of story that makes you sit down and pay attention. Because this is not just about music. This is about a human being who came from somewhere real and turned it into something nobody in the history of this industry has ever done before. Before we get into it, welcome to Celebrity Talk Show Room. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover the stories that go deeper than the headlines. Now let's get into it. Think about where this man started. A small island in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico. Beautiful place, yes, but let us not pretend it has always been easy for the people who grew up there. A place that has fought for its identity for decades. A place the rest of the world sometimes treats like a footnote. And right from that footnote came a young kid bagging groceries at a supermarket while uploading music to SoundCloud on the side. Not from a fancy studio, not with a big label behind him, just a kid with something to say and a phone to record it on. He was working a regular job during the day and dreaming at night. Most people look at the distance between where they are and where they want to be, and they quit. Benito did not quit. The music hit the internet, and something electric started happening. People started listening. Not thousands at first, just a few. But those few turned into millions, and those millions turned into something the music industry never saw coming. Because Bad Bunny did not follow the rules. He did not clean himself up, did not change his accent, did not try to sound like what the mainstream expected from a Latino artist. He showed up exactly as himself. Baggy clothes, painted nails, singing in Spanish without an apology in sight. And the world had no choice but to get in line. Authenticity gets thrown around a lot in entertainment, but Benito actually lived it. Then 2018 came and the streets felt the shift. X100 Pre dropped and the whole game changed overnight. That album was not just a collection of songs, it was a statement. It was Benito telling the world that reggaeton and trap in Espanol could carry emotions just as deep and raw as anything being made in English. People cried to those songs. People fell in love to those songs. People drove through their city at 2 in the morning with the windows down, letting those songs fill up the night. That is the kind of music that does not just entertain you, it lives inside of you. By 2020, when the entire planet was locked inside, trying to survive a pandemic nobody saw coming, Bad Bunny delivered HYLQMDLG and El Último Tour del Mundo in the same year. 2 albums, both hitting like earthquakes. The first one was a party that broke through the fear. The second was a late-night cinematic masterpiece that showed a completely different side of who he was as an artist. 2 sounds, 2 moods, same man. That is range. That is the kind of range most artists spend their entire career chasing and never find. He found it at 26 and made it look effortless. Then came Un Verano Sin Ti in 2022, and that was the moment the rest of the world finally had to stop pretending they didn't know who Bad Bunny was. That album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, making him the first Spanish-speaking artist to achieve that with a predominantly non-English album. Read that again. First in history, not first in his genre, not first in his region, first in the entire history of that chart. That is not a milestone, that is a monument. The songs felt like summer on your skin even if you were sitting in the middle of winter. Deeply Puerto Rican in its soul, blending bomba, plena, dembo, and pure pop sensibility into something that felt like both a love letter and a trophy. The world played it on repeat for months. And it wasn't just the music. Bad Bunny started moving into spaces people said a reggaeton artist had no business being in. He stepped into professional wrestling and didn't just make a cameo. He performed at WrestleMania, trained hard, showed out, and the crowd went absolutely insane. He stepped on the runway wearing skirts, dresses, and nail polish, looking every camera in the face without flinching. In a culture where machismo has always been the loudest voice in the room,
Benito walked in wearing whatever he wanted and dared anyone to say something. That takes a kind of courage that has nothing to do with muscle. It has everything to do with knowing exactly who you are and refusing to shrink for anyone. The numbers tell part of the story, but only part of it. 3 consecutive years as the most streamed artist on Spotify globally. Not the most streamed Latin artist, the most streamed artist on the entire planet. In a world where English dominates everything, in a world where the industry has always told Spanish-speaking artists there's a ceiling, Benito took that ceiling and shattered it into 1,000 pieces. He did it for himself, but he also did it for every kid on that island, every kid in Latin America, every kid anywhere who ever felt like the language they dreamed in was somehow less than. It never was. But what hits different about Benito is not just the success, it's how he carries it. He doesn't move like someone who forgot where he came from. When Puerto Rico was suffering after Hurricane Maria, he used his platform to make sure the world kept paying attention, even when the news cameras moved on. He's spoken on political issues, called out the government, and shown up for his people in ways that go far beyond dropping a charity single. His love for the island is not a brand strategy, it's bone deep. He turns 32 today, and the world feels it. Tributes are pouring in from every corner of the globe, from Puerto Rico to Spain to Argentina to the streets of New York to communities in West Africa where his music found its way through playlists and word of mouth. That's what real impact looks like, not just numbers on a screen. Human beings in places he's never visited who feel connected to his voice because he touched something universal while being completely specific to his culture and his story. There's a version of this story that could go differently. A young kid from Vega Baja uploading songs that nobody might have ever heard. But we didn't get that version. We got the real one. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio became the biggest star on the planet by being exactly who he was, refusing to change a single vowel of his language, refusing to sand down the edges of his personality, refusing to fit into a box that was built before he arrived. He didn't walk through a door, he built a whole new door and held it open for everyone behind him. Happy birthday, Benito. You earned every single thing. No one else could have done it but you.